Do you think it tastes different today? Mila, my mother-in-law, asked with a sly grin. Tonight's dinner was curry. Really? I think it tastes just like it always does. As I respond, Mila starts laughing uproariously, clapping her hands. I wonder what's so funny. What do you mean? I put this in it, she says, still laughing, showing me a bottle of bleach. Pregnant, I rush to the bathroom and throw up everything. Why would you do such a thing? I wanted you to have a miscarriage. Someone who can't even properly do housework shouldn't be raising children. That's just too cruel. How would she take responsibility if something happened to the child? Even when I tell my husband that she put bleach in the curry, he doesn't listen, saying, Mom would never do something like that. A week later, Mila was in a traffic accident and became paralyzed from the waist down. Now that I can't move freely, you'll have to take care of me for the rest of my life. That's right. You should take proper care of Mom, as she says. My husband chimes in. I was doing as they said, but one day Mila, who demanded to be taken to the bathroom quickly, threw a plastic bottle at me. At that moment, my suppressed emotions exploded. What? Go to the toilet by yourself. What's with that attitude? You're his wife. You should take care of me. Does she really think it's my duty just because I'm her son's wife? Wasn't she the one who almost killed my unborn child? Do whatever you want. I'm leaving this house. With those words, I left my parents-in-law's home. 2 years ago, I married Trevor, a full-time employee at an IT company, and quit my job when we got married. I feel bad for Cynthia, but I want you to live with me at my parents' house. I don't want to leave Mom alone. My father-in-law had passed away from a heart attack when Trevor was still an elementary school student, and it had been just Mila and him since then. I can somewhat understand Trevor's feelings. We're newlyweds. I wanted us to live by ourselves. But if Trevor insists, that's fine. Can I continue working, though? Can you also quit your job? I just don't want you to be alone during the day. Even though I felt it wasn't necessary to go that far, I lost to Trevor's insistence in my heart and decided to quit my job and agreed to live together at his parents' home. And so our cohabitation at the parents-in-law's home began. Mila, I look forward to living with you starting today. You know, I really wouldn't mind if you weren't here at all. Mila's unexpected reply took me aback. No need to say something like that on the first day. I'm only living here because Trevor asked me to. I was a bit irritated by Mila's words, but I just smiled and brushed it off. Right. Since you're here now, you'll take care of all the household chores, okay? All of them? You've quit your job to be a housewife, right? It's only natural for a married woman to do that much. True, as a housewife, now I do have the time, and it's not like I can't do it. Maybe Mila has a point. I'm going to be living at the parents-in-laws' home from now on. I should indeed take on the household responsibilities. Understood. I'll do it. Then please start with cleaning right away. What, now? I've just arrived at the parents-in-laws' home, and I haven't even unpacked my things yet. What are you daydreaming for? Get moving, or it'll be dark before you know it. Well, I guess I can take care of my stuff tomorrow. Mom, come on. Cynthia doesn't need to do it today. She's tired from moving. Just as I was about to start cleaning, Trevor stepped in to defend me. Mila didn't seem pleased with Trevor protecting me, and raised her voice at him. You! What's with the coddling? Wasn't it your idea to have her stay in the first place? So what? She's my wife, of course I'm going to take care of her. Life at the parents-in-laws' home was full of uncertainty, but I felt truly relieved when Trevor shouted back at Mila in anger. With him by my side, I figured I could manage somehow. That's what I thought at the time. The next day, after seeing Trevor off to work, I relaxed in the living room and watched TV. Good morning. What are you watching? Oh, Mila. Good morning. I was just watching a soap opera. I returned the greeting to Mila, who had just woken up, and turned back to the TV. Then Mila grabbed the TV remote and turned it off. You don't have time to be lounging around. Get started on cleaning, right now! Mila suddenly snapped at me. There's no need to rush. It's only 8 a.m. I have plenty of time to finish everything by noon. Mila, there's no need to rush. It's still 8 a.m. Still? It's already 8 a.m. You don't have time to dawdle. Once cleaning is done, there's laundry, dinner prep, and shopping to do. Yes, I understand. Reluctantly, I started cleaning as Mila commanded. Just when it was getting good, too. I couldn't concentrate on cleaning because I was too caught up thinking about the soap opera. Did you finish cleaning? What about the toilet and shower room? Make sure the windows are clean, too. Mila kept yelling at me while I was cleaning. I wonder why she's in such a hurry. She turned off the soap opera I was watching, so give me a break. Mila, I'm done. Too slow. Far too slow. How could Trevor marry such a dimwit? Even after we finished cleaning, Mila wouldn't stop with the sarcastic comments directed at me. If you have that much to say, do it yourself. That's what I was secretly wishing. I'm sorry for taking so long. Exactly. That's why I never wanted to live with such a useless woman. Whether I did the laundry, cleaned, or cooked, she seemed to always have something to complain about. Mila's mood never improved, continuing to throw cruel words at me one after another. The harassment went on every day from then on. Living like this every day is just too much. 3 months into living with Mila, I was at my limit, both mentally and physically. Around that time, I was newly pregnant with Trevor's child, and the morning sickness was so bad, there were days I could hardly move. Hey, my morning sickness is really bad, and there are days I can't move. Mila won't listen when I talk about it. Could you maybe talk to her for me? No way. It's your issue. You should tell her. It won't make a difference if I say anything. One day after Trevor came back from work, I sought his counsel, but he just laughed it off as if it had nothing to do with him and didn't listen at all. What was all that about yelling at Mila, saying he cared about me? Was it all just for show? I felt like I had no allies in this house, and day by day, my mood only got worse. Really, such a useless woman. It's a wonder you got married at all. Trevor really has no eye for people. Mila would snidely say to me daily, but I no longer cared. I stopped feeling irritated by Mila's words and spent my days expressionless. A month later, on that day, Trevor was out at a company party, so it was just Mila and me for dinner. As usual, I prepared dinner and laid out the evening meal on the table. Curry tonight, huh? Even you can mess up curry. Mila, as usual, commented sarcastically while looking at the curry before her. She complained, but ate everything without leftovers, so by now, I thought nothing of it. Well, shall we eat then? We began our meal, but Mila then asked me to bring her some water, so I stood up from my seat. After giving Mila the water, I returned to my seat and took a bite of the curry. Don't you think something's different than usual? Mila asked me with a nasty smile. Different? It's just normal, isn't it? It's the same as always. When I replied, Mila began to laugh loudly, clapping her hands. Why is she laughing so much? I'm completely lost here. Confused, I asked Mila what was going on. What's so funny that you're laughing like that? You're really oblivious, aren't you? Didn't you notice it even as you ate? I put this in. Can't believe you didn't notice. Did you like it that much? Mila laughed, showing me a container with bleach. I couldn't believe I had ingested something like that. But there was no change in taste or smell. Maybe the curry scent covered it up. I was filled with regret that I hadn't realized the bleach had been added to my food. No, this isn't the time to regret. I need to get what I ate out of my system, and fast. Remembering the little one in my belly, I rushed to the bathroom in a panic. Really, such a silly girl. As I gagged and struggled to keep vomiting, Mila just kept clapping her hands and laughing. How can she be so cruel? I can never forgive her for doing this, knowing I'm pregnant? In that moment, I finally raised my voice at Mila. This isn't funny! What have you done? What if something happens to my baby? There's no need to get so mad. You vomited it all out. You'll be fine. Mila didn't seem to feel any remorse at all. Thinking it's okay just because I vomited? That's absurd. Fine because I threw up? How can you say such things so calmly? Even a child knows not to drink bleach. I'm going to the hospital right now. After giving Mila a piece of my mind, I headed for the hospital. What if something happens to my baby? I couldn't calm my nerves. Please, let everything be okay. With my heart pounding as if it were right by my ear, I arrived at the hospital, praying for my child's safety, where I was immediately given a gastric lavage. After the doctor's examination, both the baby and I were declared fine. For now, you can go home, but if you feel off, come back immediately. There might be a delayed reaction. Relieved by the doctor's words, I returned to my parents-in-law's home. As soon as I got there, Mila started with her snide comments. Oh, look who's back! Making such a fuss over a little bleach. Why is she still laughing? I thought she had almost killed my child. Ignoring Mila, I went back to my room. If I talk to Mila now, I might just hit her. Oh, where have you been? Trevor was there, back from work. I went to the hospital! You won't believe this. Knowing I was pregnant, she put bleach in the curry, trying to feed me that. She even clearly said she wanted to cause a miscarriage. I told Trevor what Mila had done, but he seemed skeptical. Mom wouldn't do something like that. Stop lying. I felt a surge of anger at Trevor laughing and taking Mila's side. It's his child too. How can he laugh? Fine. If you don't believe me, so be it. But I will never forgive Mila. I don't want to stay in this house. If I keep staying here, she might actually kill my child. Mila kept up her harassment the next day and the day after. But I, having reached the peak of my anger, decided to ignore her completely. I kept up with the household as usual, but ignored Mila thoroughly, no matter what she said. After all, I'd be leaving this house soon anyway. A week later, as I was zoning out in the living room of my parents-in-law's home, my mobile phone rang. Cynthia, it's the police! Mom's been in an accident! Mila has? You didn't keep an eye on Mom? Just get to the hospital immediately! Mila had an accident? Now that I think about it, she did say she was going to buy groceries herself today. After hanging up with Trevor, I headed to the hospital where Mila was taken. As much as I dislike the person, I wouldn't feel good if she died. I just hope there's no life-threatening condition. Upon arrival at the hospital, I entered the private room where Mila was admitted. Is Mila okay? Yeah, she's pulled through. There was a grim look on Trevor's face. What happened? As I wondered, Mila spoke up. She seemed lucid and didn't appear to have any issues. My lower body? I can't move it. What? Does that mean you can't walk anymore? That's right. So now you'll have to take care of me. For life. Due to the accident, Mila suffered spinal cord damage, resulting in lower body paralysis. Hearing Mila's declaration, Trevor also broke into tears, saying, Exactly! Why did you let Mom go shopping in the first place? You should have took care of her, just like she said. That's what he told me. Why do I have to be the one to take care of her? This has to be a joke. I spoke up firmly to both of them. Why do I have to take care of Mila? After she almost killed our child? Fortunately, nothing happened, but what she did is attempted murder, you know. That may be true, but you're my wife. It's only natural for you to take care of Mom. Just because I'm his wife, I'm supposed to take care of Mila? He should take care of his own mother. Why don't you take care of your own parent? Stop pushing everything onto me. I have work, and I can't always be there. That's why I'm asking you. Plus, it's your fault for letting Mom go shopping in the first place. Take responsibility. Mila had said she wanted to go shopping, so I let her. Why do I have to be the bad guy? This family is so selfish. Realizing that arguing was futile, I stopped responding to them. 3 days later, Mila was discharged and returned to our parents-in-law's home. After dropping Mila off at the parents-in-law's home from the hospital, Trevor immediately left for work. It seems he has no real intention of taking care of Mila. Usually, you'd take the day off on your parents' discharge day. I'm so angry that he's dumped everything on me. Aside from her lower body paralysis, Mila is very energetic and started ordering me around as soon as she got back to the parents-in-law's home. Hey, pass me that remote control. You can reach it yourself. Why don't you get it? My legs don't work. Her upper body is fine, and the remote is within reach if she stretches out her arm. Don't call me over for such a trivial matter. That evening, the day Mila returned to the parents-in-law's home, her voice echoed from the living room. Hey! Come here, will you? Not this again. Now what's it this time? Feeling fed up, I had been ignoring Mila, but her voice was getting louder and louder. Can't you hear me, you bitch? Get over here now! Reluctantly, I headed towards the living room. What's with all the yelling? Finally showed up, huh? I need to go to the bathroom. Take me there, will you? No, I won't. Please don't raise your voice for such things. After all, you're wearing diapers in case of emergencies. Leaving those words with Mila, I tried to return to my room. That's when I felt a strong impact on my back. Ouch! Looking at my feet, there was a plastic bottle full of water rolling around. Seems like Mila threw it in frustration at my attitude. Mila, did you throw this? That's right! It's your fault for not taking me to the bathroom! Just do as I say without any backtalk! I had reached my limit. After being ordered around and having things thrown at me, and to think my child might have been killed. Time to let her know she's mistaken if she thinks I'll always be a pushover. Quiet and obey, huh? I might feel sorry for your condition, Mila, but aren't you getting a bit too carried away? What about me is getting carried away? That's what I'm talking about. You yell when things don't go your way and throw things. Besides, like I said at the hospital, why should I have to care for you? I told Mila with a cold voice. That might be true, but at least take me to the bathroom. I already told you no. Besides, I'm leaving this house. Huh? Mila looked surprised, unable to grasp what I was saying. After she threw the plastic bottle at me, I decided then and there to leave this house today, right now. I'm not about to keep bending to someone like her. Leave, as in this house? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Did the accident make you stupid? I'm sick of being ordered around by you and Trevor. Oh, I'll listen to that later. Just take me to the toilet. I forgot to wear diapers today. Mila was still clamoring to be taken to the bathroom, probably at her limit. But no matter how much she begs, I'm not taking her. Do whatever you want. I don't care. I'll never forgive you for this. I don't need your forgiveness. Just so you know, I'll never forgive you either. With those parting words to Mila, I headed to my room, grabbed the bare minimum, and left the parents-in-law's home. I half expected Trevor to call me after I left the parents-in-law's home on my own, but there was no contact at all. A month later, I had returned to my parents' house and was living a stress-free life. Life had been hard every day, so being at home was truly a joy. Then, on a day off, Trevor suddenly called. You're at your parents' house, right? What do you want, calling me out of the blue? Just get back here. I have something to talk about. He calls now, after all this time, saying he has something to talk about. Absolutely not taking my calls. but now acting all high and mighty, huh? Ignoring me for a whole month just shows how little you care. What a selfish person. Still, this is a good chance to end things properly with those two. I might as well tell them directly that it's over between us. Fueled by anger, I headed to my parents-in-law's home. Long time no see, it's me. Come in. Trevor answered the intercom, and I stepped into the in-laws' house. Mila, seeing me enter the living room, immediately started yelling. So you finally show up! Where have you been hiding all this time, you witch? In the past, Mila's shouting might have cowed me, but not anymore. Where? I went back to my parents' home. Just took off on your own? Do you have any idea how tough it's been here? If you're back, start taking care of me right away. That's what I've been trying to tell you. I won't be taking care of Mila. Ask Trevor to do that. You're to blame for this mess, so take responsibility! Mila flung another plastic bottle at me, but I dodged it effortlessly. Picking up the plastic bottle that had skittered across the floor, this time I chucked it back at Mila with all my might. I made sure not to hit her directly with the bottle. What the heck? That's not safe! Mila must have never expected it to be tossed back to her. She let out a voice that sounded quite shocked. You know it's dangerous. I avoided hitting you, but you didn't miss when you hit me, did you? You! What do you think you're doing? Throwing things at people? I'll call the police! Trevor, who had been watching the exchange with Mila, interjected, but if he was keen on calling the police, so was I. Acting like they're the victim. You're going to report me to the cops? Go right ahead. I'll also report Mila for attempted murder and assault with a plastic bottle. The mention of the police seemed to frighten Trevor and Mila, and they quickly quieted down. Always quick to blame me, but never reflecting on their own actions. Are they out of their minds? Please, not the police. I'm sorry. I'm asking you too. We went too far. Please, let's not involve the police. Truly selfish, aren't you? I don't need your apologies now. Instead of calling the cops, let's end this relationship. Write this down. With that, I pulled the divorce papers out of my bag and thrust them at the two. Divorce? Isn't that a bit hasty? For me, it's been too long coming. Come on, Trevor, sign this now. But how will you live after the divorce? You'll struggle without me, won't you? No way. It's harder living with someone who won't take my side and does nothing while Mila harasses me every day. I'm perfectly fine with getting a divorce. Once I made up my mind, nothing Trevor said could change my decision about the divorce. Trevor seemed to resign himself to this reality, watching how determined I was. His hands trembling, he signed and stamped the divorce papers. Mila, you saw clearly how Trevor signed the divorce papers, right? Now I'm a stranger to you both. Don't come asking me for any favors. If you dare to bother me about caregiving again, I won't hesitate to call the cops. With those words, I left my parents-in-law's house. Just before I exited, I caught a glimpse of Mila's face. Her ashen expression was priceless. A week later, I received a message from Trevor on WhatsApp. Drat, I've forgotten to block him. Curious, despite myself, I opened WhatsApp. I'm really sorry for all the trouble Mom has caused. I regret not supporting you more, especially now that it's too late. Since the divorce, Mom's been even harsher, and it's taking a toll on me both mentally and physically. If you're willing, can we start over? I promise I'll be on your side this time. I had a sneaking suspicion this would happen, knowing Mila's character. Someone who believes they're the most important, she'd dictate to her own son without a shred of mercy. But what nonsense was he spouting now? Even if he said that, it was obvious he'd take Mila's side again. I had no intention of ever seeing their faces again, let alone reconciling. Annoyed by Trevor's message, I replied sharply. Don't be ridiculous. Just put her in a home, and don't ever contact me again. After sending the message, I blocked Trevor's WhatsApp. Of course, I blocked his calls too. With the child in my womb, A new chapter of my life was beginning.
I tried making pasta with a cream sauce. It's homemade, so please enjoy it while it's still warm. The dish she served had a horrible odor. It didn't smell good at all, so I hesitated to take a bite. Aren't you going to eat it? Don't you like my cooking? Are you just trying to hassle me? I was baffled by Holly, who seemed intent on making me the bad guy. When Holly left her seat, I stealthily switched my plate with that of my son, Aiden. I hoped that my concerns would be unfounded. As I handed my plate over, while praying, Aiden took a big bite without hesitation. However, Aiden foamed at the mouth and collapsed backwards as soon as he ate it. Aiden, why did he collapse? What happened? I realized that Holly had intentionally tampered with my plate before she could fake confusion. Seeing Holly's reaction, I decided to get back at her. My name is Susan. I turned 62 this year. When Aiden got married, it was just me and my husband left in a quiet house. I missed the noise. One day, as we were chatting about his married life, Aiden suddenly looked troubled and brought up a topic. The truth is, my wife's cooking isn't very good. What are you talking about? Just be grateful you're being cooked for. I really am, but I just can't eat it. At first, I scolded Aiden for complaining about someone's homemade food, but Aiden had always been a child who ate everything without being picky. Even as an adult, he enjoyed eating, so it was strange for him to say that. Well, then, come and have dinner with us sometime. Really? Thank you, Mom. Seeing his face brighten, I thought spending time together occasionally wouldn't be a bad idea. I made a casual offer, hoping to get along well with Aiden's wife, Holly. However, Holly's actions turned out to be far beyond my imagination and utterly outrageous. A few days after talking to Aiden, the couple came to our house for dinner. My husband and I enjoyed a lively time with our guests at the dinner table without any particular incidents. I hope it suits your taste, Holly. It's delicious. I'm glad. Thank you. Aiden always told me how delicious his mom's cooking is. I'm jealous of having such a skilled cook as a mother. I couldn't help but blush at Holly's words. Continuing, Holly said, I also made a dish for you as a gift. She then placed a large container in the middle of the dining table. Holly, what on earth did you make for us? It's a French dish called quiche. Don't you know it? Saying it confidently, Holly opened the container and showed us the contents. What was inside looked like a cross between an omelet and a pie, but it emitted a terrible smell as soon as it was opened, making me involuntarily grimace. The surface was burnt and the inside was a gooey, undercooked dough with a fishy smell. You just mix the dough and bake it, so it's easy to make. Is that so? Should we heat it up again? It's delicious even when it's cold, so it's fine. I had no choice but to try the dish, so I timidly picked up my chopsticks. The undercooked, powdery dough that hadn't mixed well made me hesitate. My husband, who was watching, put down his chopsticks without taking a single bite. Aiden also remained silent and didn't attempt to eat it. For some reason, Holly didn't try it either. Mother-in-law, aren't you eating it? I'm sorry, but I feel like it's a bit undercooked. Can we go ahead and reheat it? Holly frowned at my reaction and sighed. I tried to choose my words carefully, but it seemed that Holly was still uncomfortable. Never mind. She slammed the container on the table. I didn't think I'd be treated like this just for bringing a dish. Do you think you can do anything just because you're good at cooking? Holly, calm down. Before you complain to Mom, don't you think you should try it yourself? It's easy to make, so I don't need to taste it. Why aren't you eating it either? How can you serve food to people without tasting it yourself? Just try it. Although I didn't mean any harm, I was the one who had been rude. I tried to smooth things over while calming their argument, but Holly remained angry and left. Aiden apologized and left to follow her. In the silent dining room, I held my head in my hands. At this rate, she'll think I'm giving her a hard time. I sighed as I looked at my husband. Looking at the leftover container, I wondered what to do. I'm not cocky about being a good cook, I'm just average. I worry about finding a peaceful resolution. I could tell Aiden to cook for himself, but it might hurt Holly's pride. Although he's my son, I shouldn't interfere in their household. After discussing it with my husband, we decided not to get involved too much. But since then, Holly started coming to our house frequently for some reason. "Mother-in-law, will you please make lunch? And please put dinner for Aiden in a container to take home." The next day, Holly came alone without Aiden. Holly suddenly spread empty containers on the table and asked me to make lunch and dinner for her and Aiden. Surprised by the sudden visit, I asked her if something had happened. "Aiden seems to prefer your cooking, so I thought I'd ask you to make our meals from now on." "That's a problem. Holly, why don't we cook together?" "No, you're just going to make that disgusted face again. You're just giving me a hard time." I was at a loss for words when she said that so decisively. Even if I say I don't mean it that way, she wouldn't listen. She had labeled me a terrible mother-in-law. Although cooking isn't too much trouble, it's unbearable to do it every day for a daughter-in-law who dislikes me this much. I thought about teaching her some simple dishes, but she wouldn't agree to that either. "You're good at cooking, so just make it for us. And please, take care of tomorrow's meal too." Despite trying to persuade her, she only became more brazen day by day. On days when I refused, she apparently bought prepared food at the grocery store. Aiden seemed to be fine with eating that and didn't comment on it, so Holly started to complain about him eating at our place. "Aiden was spoiled by you, wasn't he? He just gobbles up store-bought food." "He's always loved eating since he was young. But he hardly eats any of my cooking. He's just trying to hurt my feelings." "Well, I'm not sure about that." Holly started coming to our house almost every day at lunchtime, relying on us for her own meals and Aiden's dinner. Eventually, she demanded that I make Aiden's lunch and deliver it in the morning, which left me extremely troubled. I talked to Aiden, asking him to do something about Holly coming to our house too much, but instead, he started giving me money for their meals to avoid her cooking. If you're going to pay that much money, why not have Holly learn to cook? I told her, but Holly says it hurts her feelings and won't listen. In the end, another conflict arose between the two when Holly found out Aiden was giving me money for food expenses. "Why are you paying your mother? Is this supposed to be an allowance? I didn't hear anything about this." "It's because you're making my mom cook for us. What's wrong with paying for our food?" "It's because you don't eat my cooking. It can't be helped." After that, we tried several times to discuss the situation with Holly, but no matter how much we tried to persuade her, she would not be convinced. She wouldn't listen, insisting that not eating her cooking was harassment and that we were trying to put her down together. Eventually, I decided not to cook for the two anymore, which seemed to settle the issue, though Holly still didn't agree. I didn't want to get involved anymore, so I had no choice but to ask them to discuss and resolve the issue themselves. About 2 or 3 weeks after the discussion, Holly came to our house again on a calm afternoon. I tensed up and greeted her at the entrance, but that day Aiden was with her. "I want you to teach me how to cook." She finally agreed to listen to reason. "Please, just this once." "Well, If that's the case, I'll help her." I was relieved, thinking that the discussion had led to a positive resolution and led them to the kitchen. Holly said she had brought her own ingredients and seemed more motivated than before. However, for some reason, she kicked me out of the kitchen when I tried to help. Not only me, but Aiden was also kicked out of the room for some reason. We exchanged worried glances, but Holly said, "I can't concentrate if I'm not alone," and refused to listen. As we anxiously waited, we were called back into the living room after just a few minutes. Holly served us pasta that she had made in the kitchen. It seemed too short a time for pasta to be cooked, so I tried to go to the kitchen to check, but Holly stopped me. "Mother-in-law, what's wrong? Here, try it while it's warm." Is everything okay? Did you find the pots and everything?" "Everything was fine, so please, just try my homemade pasta while it's still warm." The pasta with cream sauce that Holly served didn't look as bad as before. However, when I mixed it with a fork, I could clearly see foreign objects in the white sauce. At first it looked like the remnants of a roux, but it had an unusual smell, like an air freshener. Aiden, who hesitantly tried it next to me, exclaimed with a surprised face, "It's delicious," and seemed moved. "Wow, it's good. Holly, you've learned to make this kind of food." "I always cook properly. Look, even my mother-in-law. There's no way she wouldn't eat it." "Mom, it's fine. It's just a normal pasta." Although Holly would usually be furious and yell at Aiden's rude comment, she didn't seem to care and just urged me to eat quickly. However, the more I mixed it, the stronger the strange smell got, making me hesitate. "Why won't you eat it?" "So my mother-in-law just wanted to mess with me, right?" "That's not true, it's just that—" At that moment, a ringtone sounded from Holly's bag. It seemed she received a phone call and Holly hurriedly left the table and went outside the room. I took the opportunity to ask Aiden to secretly exchange the pasta. Aiden happily started eating it as a second serving, but the next moment he flipped backward and collapsed, foaming at the mouth. I couldn't help but scream. "What happened? Why did Aiden collapse?" Hearing my scream, Holly returned and rushed to Aiden's side. While I called for an ambulance, Holly looked very confused and asked, "What happened to Aiden?" Aiden was taken to the hospital and had his stomach pumped. My husband and I, who had heard the news and joined me, finally sighed with relief as we saw Aiden lying on the hospital bed. However, Holly asked Aiden why before we could express our concern, just as she had when he collapsed. "Hey, why did Aiden collapse? How come?" "Holly, please calm down." "It should have been you. Did you force Aiden to eat it?" "What on earth are you talking about? Holly, what did you do?" My husband and I tried to get answers from Holly, who kept accusing me and said the most outrageous thing. "You insulted my cooking, so I thought I'd get back at you." "Get back at me?" "It's also my mother-in-law's fault that Aiden won't eat my cooking. Aiden has always been on her side." Neither Aiden nor I had any intention of doing that, but I guess we did hurt your feelings. "Yes, you did. That's why I thought everything would be peaceful if my mother-in-law wasn't around." It seemed that Holly had indeed put something foreign in the pasta she served me. The white residue turned out to be detergent, and luckily no serious harm was done. However, if things had gone wrong, Aiden might have ended up in more serious a condition. Aiden should have noticed the strong smell, but I couldn't help but intervene when the situation went beyond the dimension of being good or bad at cooking. If you're saying it would be better if I wasn't around, then all you needed to do was try harder at cooking. But if you were still alive, Aiden would always be on your side, wouldn't he? Seeing Holly's unapologetic and unreflective attitude, I dropped my shoulders in disappointment. My husband also quietly shook his head at her childish rebuttal, which showed she didn't even understand the gravity of what she had done. That's enough, Holly. I'd like to have a talk with your parents as well. What? Why? My parents have nothing to do with this. Because talking to you won't get us anywhere. After Aiden's safe recovery and discharge from the hospital, we decided to have a discussion involving Holly's parents. Although Holly was very reluctant until the last minute, I called her parents first to explain the situation and arranged a meeting. I deeply apologize for the tremendous trouble our daughter has caused you. Oh no, it's something my mother needs to apologize for. That's right, it's my mother-in-law who should be apologizing. Every time Holly spoke up, her mother, Kate, sternly glared at her and made her bow her head. Kate's strict attitude throughout the discussion made me wonder about Holly's behavior. We'll make her pay for the medical expenses. If there's anything else she can do to make amends, please let us know. Stop it, I'm not paying any money. Holly, can you tell me why you did such a thing? Like I said at the hospital, it's because Aiden only ever takes your side. Holly still insisted that I was provoking Aiden to mock her cooking. She continued to blame me even for the circumstances that led me to taking over cooking duties. Unable to bear her attitude any longer, I showed a certain photograph to Kate. What is this? This is a dish Holly brought to our house. She says it's called quiche. You served such a terrible thing to someone else? Kate, trembling, stared at Holly and began to scold her harshly as she tried to make excuses. Holly had no choice but to hang her head in silence as the lecture continued without giving us a chance to intervene. In the end, Holly admitted to everything. She thought that if Aiden kept siding with me, she would ultimately have to take care of me, so she believed that if she could get me hospitalized, she wouldn't have to do so. The absurd leap in logic made my head spin. I'm sorry, but I can't continue our married life after being subjected to something like this. Why not? It's not my fault. You shouldn't have taken your mother's side. You be quiet. You could be turned over to the police for this. Hearing the word police, Holly turned pale once again. Although there was some trouble regarding compensation and hospital fees, Kate promised to make Holly pay, and the situation didn't escalate any further. Although Holly acted like a child for a while, she seemed to be feeling down after Aiden told her, I can't be with you anymore. I later learned that Holly's parents, who she said she didn't get along with, were actually professional chefs. Holly, who wanted to cook freely, had been severely scolded by her parents for her unorthodox ideas and apparently started cooking however she liked after getting married. Aiden told me that her parents were furious with her for trying to demean someone for her cooking, especially her father, whom we didn't meet during the discussion, was said to be furious and now was taking her through a so-called bridal training where she was being taught the basics of cooking at her parents' home. This made me realize I needed to teach my son how to do basic household chores as well. Aiden, while appreciating the privilege of having someone cook for him, has started making simple dishes on his own. He asked me to teach him how to cook and sometimes comes to our house to cook meals together. For some reason, my husband also became interested in cooking, and the three of us enjoy cooking together, or sometimes I let the two of them handle the cooking while I relax.
3 daughters and not a single son? What a waste of space. What's the point of supporting defective goods that can't produce a male heir? My ex-husband sneered these words at my new husband. You'll never know the joy of having a son. My husband looked at my ex with a puzzled expression. A defective product because she can't give birth to a boy? What are you talking about? My name is Cherie. Until I turned 29, I lived with my in-laws, who owned a generations-old stationery store beloved by the community. Kids in the neighborhood always buy their school supplies here. Last year, my father-in-law Jonas decided to pass the store on to his son David. My eyesight's getting bad, Jonas said, placing his hand on David's shoulder. David sighed heavily, looking at me without responding to Jonas. Make sure the store doesn't end with me, Cherie. Here we go again. David has been pressuring me like this ever since we started dating. He always wanted a son, and after we got married, his tone and attitude became increasingly harsh. His mother, Annie, and even Jonas, who tries to be understanding, want a grandson. I had 2 sons right after getting married. You and your sister are both girls. Maybe it's genetic, Annie said. Well, let's hope for a boy next time, Jonas added. You wouldn't understand. Being a regular office worker's daughter, in our family, the eldest son has always taken over the business. Your job is to give birth to the next heir, David said. No one in the family ever stood up to David. I had a 3rd child, hoping that maybe this time it would be a boy and David would change. But yet again, it was a girl. 3 daughters. What a waste. Even looking at our newborn daughter, David didn't change his stance that anything other than a son was worthless. When our 3rd daughter turned 3, we got news from my in-laws, who were at the hospital, that my brother-in-law and his wife had a son. David kicked a chair and yelled at me before even considering congratulations. A son? Right from the start? Not like some useless woman who can't give birth to an heir. A wife like that is no different from a scam. David never laid a hand on me, but his sudden outbursts about having children were something I could never get used to. After berating me endlessly, David simply said, "Dinner," and stormed out of the room. Up to this point, I had been absorbing his anger and hadn't even gone shopping yet. Feeling tears well up, whether from frustration or sadness, I grabbed my wallet and hurried to the store. Once alone, I felt a bit calmer. When I returned, David's car, which had been there earlier, was gone. Did he really go out after telling me to prepare dinner? I was angry, but at least I wouldn't have to face any blame about the kids if I didn't see him. In the quiet house, with our daughters also gone, I waited alone for everyone to return. Then, a call came in from my parents' home. It was my mom asking, "David suddenly showed up and left the girls here. What's going on?" The girls? I told her I didn't know what was happening either, and asked her to watch the kids for a bit before hanging up. I tried to reach David to get his side of the story, but got no response. After several attempts, I was about to leave for my parents' house when David's car pulled up. I rushed over to him. "David, Mom just called and said you left the girls with her." "Yeah, it's hard to manage all 3, so I dropped them off." "What?" "You're not needed anymore. Go back to your parents' house. We're getting a divorce." David pulled out divorce papers from his bag, held them up in front of me, and added, "Sign these." "A divorce?" "There's no point in supporting a defective woman who can't give birth to a boy." Faced with the sudden word divorce from David, I felt a sense of relief. Maybe divorce was the answer all along. I returned to my parents' home and worked hard every day to raise my daughters. David did send child support every month, but he had no interest in his daughters, who couldn't be his successors. Moreover, the girls, who had never been close to David, had no desire to see him after the divorce. 3 years after the divorce, I met my current husband, Frederick, a doctor, and we got married. He treats my 3 daughters as if they were his own, and we have a good family relationship. One day while shopping with my husband, I ran into David. Our eyes met, and there was no chance to escape as he quickly approached. "Long time no see. So this is your new husband." This was the first time I had spoken to David since informing him that I no longer needed child support due to my remarriage. I was a bit nervous about what he might say. "I've remarried too. This is my current wife, Elise." As David introduced the woman next to him, she shifted the baby boy she was holding, as if to show him off. David looked satisfied and turned to my husband with a condescending smile. "You'll never hold a son in your arms. She's defective. She can only give birth to girls." My husband looked puzzled. "Don't you know?" He looked at me and smiled. "The gender of a baby is determined by the genetic information in the sperm. So if you really want to blame someone for only having daughters, it would be the father." David seemed offended by my husband's retort and raised his voice, even though we were in public. "That's nonsense. She's useless because she can only give birth to girls." "Wow, people still believe that myth? There's no scientific basis for that." Annoyed that my husband dismissed his belief as a myth, David snapped. "Who do you think you are?" "I'm a doctor. Probably know a bit more about this than you do." David seemed surprised by this and muttered some curses. "I don't care if you're a doctor. She gave birth to 3 girls and I left her. If you want a son as an heir, think twice." Just then, our daughters returned from buying drinks. "Mom, is Strawberry okay?" My eldest and second daughters, each holding drinks, were followed by our youngest, who was holding the hand of a little boy. David's eyes widened in surprise. "He's our son. Doesn't he look just like my husband?" "Your son?" Realizing that I, whom he'd mocked for only giving birth to girls, had a son, David was speechless. He took his new wife's hand and left. My 2 older daughters, who remembered the divorce drama from 5 years ago, made faces of disgust at their father. 3 months after the encounter with David, I received a call from an unknown number. I ignored it at first, but the calls kept coming. Curious, I answered on the 4th call. "Hello?" "Cherie, listen, I need to talk." It was David, speaking rapidly as if in a hurry. According to the story, David had some concerns and decided to visit a hospital after encountering us. Turns out it was the same hospital where my husband works. My husband spotted David sitting in the lobby and approached him, asking if he was feeling unwell. David said he was fine, but wanted to consult a doctor about his son. I was surprised to hear this from my husband, so I asked David if he had called to tell me about it. "No, I've been deceived." Combining what David told me over the phone with what I later heard from my husband, here's what happened. David had seen my son, who looks a lot like my husband, while out shopping. This prompted him to resolve some complicated feelings he'd been grappling with. You see, David had been bothered that his son, born to his second wife, didn't resemble him much. Despite trying to brush it off, everyone kept saying the boy looked like his mom. No one said he looked like David. So David decided he wanted a DNA test to prove his paternity and went to the hospital for that reason. At first, he just wanted to ease his mind with the test. But my husband told him, "If you're raising him with love as your son, isn't that enough?" David took this as a veiled suggestion that the test might prove the boy wasn't his, and he got angry. He declared he would definitely get the test done, only to be told, "We don't do paternity tests here." Ignoring my husband's words, David went ahead and visited the hospital's genetics department. As expected, they couldn't help him. The doctor suggested he consult a lawyer, so he left the hospital. Later, he got the test done through a lawyer-recommended agency and found out the boy wasn't his biological son. "When I confronted her, she admitted she cheated," David said, anger seeping through the phone. But honestly, I had nothing to say. I don't know if he just wanted someone to listen or thought I'd sympathize, but the call was unnecessary. "So what do you want from me?" "I'm not interested in your life anymore, so stop contacting me," I said, ignoring his desperate tone. I hung up and blocked his number. But just when I thought peace had returned to our home, a new problem arose. David's ex-wife, who had been divorced and sought compensation, started pestering my husband for a dinner date. She had learned about my husband's workplace from David, checked every doctor's profile on the hospital's website, and finally identified my husband and his department from the posted photos. She then reached out on social media, trying to impress him with her achievements and inviting him to dinner, only to be firmly turned down. Despite being turned down, this woman was relentless. She even tried to ambush my husband as he left the hospital and made unnecessary appointments, raising alarms among the hospital staff. Eventually, my husband decided to talk to her directly to put an end to the inconvenience she was causing. As always, he caught her loitering around the hospital and told her off. "Please stop following me. I have no interest in dining with you or being friends." She got red in the face, badmouthed me, his wife, and stormed off. "I don't remember the details," my husband said. "It was embarrassing. Everyone was watching." 4 days after hearing this from my husband, our doorbell rang incessantly. On the monitor was a woman who appeared to be David's ex-wife. I wondered why she was at our house, but with the lights on, pretending to be out was not an option. I asked my eldest daughter and second daughter to take the younger kids upstairs. Then I opened the door with the chain still on. The woman smirked as she glanced at the chain. Surprisingly, she seemed calm and called out to him without even trying to hide her hostility. "Sorry to bother you at such a busy time, Super Mom." "What do you want?" I asked curtly, and she snorted. "You're not very friendly, are you? Let's get to the point. You should leave your doctor husband. Cherry, was it? A woman like you, who can't even cook and has a bunch of stepchildren, doesn't deserve a doctor. Know your place." I had never discussed my cooking skills with the stranger, but she must have heard something from David. "Why are you here telling me to divorce my husband?" "I won't divorce him, and it's none of your business." I tried to close the door, but she raised her voice. "Don't you get it? The reason David left you is because I suggested it." I froze, and she retracted her foot from the doorway, laughing. "That was close. Almost got my foot caught." "What are you talking about?" Ignoring her flippancy, she sneered. "I was dating David at the time. He's the eldest son of a historic shop, you know. So I advised him to divorce you since you can only give birth to daughters and can't produce a male heir. I had no idea, so it was an affair. Well, it turned out for the best. Now you know you can have a son. But the stationery shop doesn't make as much as I thought, so I'll give David back to you, and you give me your current husband." She spoke as if she had already won, looking down on me with a smug expression. As I was lost in thought, she said in a low voice, "If you get it, then divorce him already," and left. I was shocked by this unexpected revelation, but I felt no pain as my love for David had already faded. Still, I wanted to put an end to her stalking my husband. Before opening the door, I had set my phone to record, just in case. The audio was clearer than expected, and I decided to fight to protect my husband and children. Later, I used the recording as evidence to demand compensation from David and his ex-wife. She was reluctant to pay, saying I had also remarried, but I sent detailed documents to her parents prepared by a lawyer based on information from David. David also had resentments towards his ex-wife, so things moved smoothly. I don't know if he's remorseful, but he has already paid the compensation in full. On the other hand, her parents were furious when they learned about their daughter's actions. They summoned her and her child to their home and promised to make payments to me. She couldn't pay it all at once, since she also owed David, but she's making monthly payments. It's funny to talk about a successor when we don't even know if they want to take over. And the idea that only a boy can inherit is strange. What kind of business can only be passed to a man? My husband, who has no plans to open his own practice, spoke in a relaxed tone. We hope our children find what they want to do in life. We don't worry about whether they're boys or girls. Our family here and now is what matters most. And so we continue to live happily.
You're the one who should leave this house, Grandma.
There's no need to show compassion to Charlie, who mocks me, her mother-in-law, by calling me Grandma. Now that I know her true colors, I won't hold back. No, you're the one who should leave. My name is Vivi. I work as a medical social worker helping patients in need. Because my name is unique, patients remember me easily. If you're wealthy and get seriously ill, you can focus on treatment. But if you're poor and have a long-term illness, you suffer twice as much. My job is to support patients, ease their worries, and give them hope by telling them there are various ways to get through this. I was thinking of retiring soon, as I've reached 60, but then my husband fell ill and passed away. After the funeral, the emptiness of living alone in a big house started to sink in. I decided to renovate the house. Once it was done, I invited my eldest son and his wife to discuss something. Living alone in such a big house feels lonely and wasteful. Would you like to move in with me? My indecisive son, Brian, looks at his wife Charlie's face before giving his opinion. Brian is 32 and Charlie is 24. Though not a huge age gap, Charlie clearly wears the pants in the relationship. I don't mind. A woman being in charge is better than a man acting all high and mighty.
If you're okay with it, we'd love to live with you.
Charlie is always cheerful and competent, and I think she's a good daughter-in-law.
I'll do the cleaning.
Really? That would be a big help. Charlie gives Brian a smile that's more like a glare, and he mumbles, "Oh, sure." I chuckle and say, "Don't worry about finances. I'm still working and have savings. I'm not asking you to take care of me." Brian looks relieved. I chuckle again, realizing that was his concern. Charlie works part-time at a grocery store, but also takes care of the house. She handles all the chores so I can focus on my job. I talk more with Charlie than with my reserved son Brian, and we've had a good mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship.
What does a medical social worker do?
It's important work. For example, a male patient had a serious illness requiring long-term treatment. He was told his bill was $100 and argued with the clerk, thinking it was a mistake. Charlie listens intently. When this burly, rough-looking man raised his voice, the young clerk got scared. That's when I step in. I calmly talk to him, listen to his concerns, and help him relax. He works for a shipping company, doing heavy labor, like unloading trucks. Doctors tell him to avoid physical work, but that's easier said than done.
So that's where you come in?
Exactly. I encourage him to have a positive mindset. If he's feeling hopeless, he won't come up with good solutions. There are various systems in place to help people in need.
Systems?
There are new programs, so not everyone knows about them. That's where experts like me come in, to guide people toward hope. He got better and is now working happily.
Whoa, Vivi, you're doing God's work.
That's an exaggeration. One day, Charlie bought a new refrigerator. When I saw the strong man delivering it, I was surprised. "Is that you, Danny?" "I thought it might be you, Vivi. Your name is so unique."
You know each other?
"I'm glad to see you're doing well."
"Vivi, you saved my life. I would never forget your kindness."
After Danny left, I say to Charlie, "Remember the burly guy I told you about?"
Oh, you mean the guy who'd look like a villain when he wore a suit?
Don't judge a book by its cover. He's a kind-hearted man.
A scary face but a gentle heart? Is that your type?
What are you talking about? Charlie is a good person, but she has her reckless moments. She's free-spirited and has many male friends. She stays out late, which I find concerning, but she's still in her 20s, so I let it slide. One night, she came home around 2 a.m., quite drunk, after attending a reunion. Brian didn't seem to mind, so I didn't say anything. Then one day, Brian said to me,
I'm worried Charlie might be cheating.
Cheating? Do you have any proof?
I saw her. She was at a restaurant with a young man I don't know, looking very close and happy.
Did you ask her about it?
I did, casually. She said he was a classmate from middle school.
It's not ideal for a married woman to be alone with a man other than her husband, but I didn't want to ruin the good relationship I had with Charlie by being too nosy. 10 years have passed since my husband died, and I'm now 70. I've retired from work. Then tragedy struck. Brian, only 42, suddenly fell ill and passed away. After the funeral, when it was just Charlie and me, I said, the greatest act of filial piety is not to die before your parents. That way, parents don't have to experience the irreversible tragedy of losing a child. Vivi. 2 months have passed since his death, and the sorrow hasn't faded. One day, Charlie called me.
Vivi, can I bring a friend over?
A friend? Sure. I assumed it would be a female friend, but it was a man. Long blonde hair, down to his shoulders, piercing eyes, a flashy leopard print shirt, and ripped jeans. Charlie introduced him with a smile.
This is Miles, a classmate from middle school.
Yo! That's his greeting for our first meeting? I've always told people not to judge others by their appearances, but this guy is pushing it. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I enjoy meeting Charlie in bed every night, too.
Idiot.
I've never been fond of people with no class. I hope to God he's just a friend and not her lover. After that, Charlie kept bringing Miles to the house. The first time was the only time she asked for permission. It's only been just 2 months since Brian passed away, so I can't believe this. I can't help but remember what Brian said about Charlie possibly cheating. Miles is 34, old enough to know better, but he stomps around and acts like he owns the place.
I love this house. It's big and beautiful. I want to live here.
What a terrifying thing to say. Miles is looking at the bookshelf. He sees the complete 60-volume comic series of The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, along with novels and related books.
I like Romance of the Three Kingdoms, too. My favorite general is Zhang Fei.
You like Romance of the Three Kingdoms?
I like Zhang Fei because he's hot-tempered, a heavy drinker, and quick to fight, just like me.
I was glad to find a topic we could talk about, but imitating only the flaws of a general misses the point. Zhang Fei wasn't just brave, he was also a brilliant strategist. One of his plans succeeded so well that he broke through 14 enemy gates without shedding a drop of blood. Miles doesn't look convinced.
If it's Zhang Fei, he'd break through those 14 gates with brute force. That doesn't sound like him.
I guess we're not going to see eye to eye. What do you do for work, Miles?
Work? I'm not working right now.
Charlie quickly jumps in.
Miles is pursuing a career in music, so he's not exactly unemployed.
I'll fill a stadium someday. Just you watch.
Caught off guard by Miles' sudden shout, I ask, so do you play rock music?
Of course it's rock, but my band recently broke up. I'm 34 now, and my parents are telling me to get a stable job. But I'm not listening to such faint-hearted people.
But your dad supports your dream.
My dad gave me his debit card. I was shocked to see it already had $30,000 in the account.
I wondered if his parents are wealthy.
With $30,000, you could live quite comfortably.
I'm not impressed with his personality or his first impression. If you don't manage that $30,000 carefully, it'll be gone before you know it. Even a part-time job that pays $100 a month would help, and you could supplement it with that $30,000.
Wait a minute, old lady.
I'm taken aback by being called an old lady.
You're 70, so you're not an old lady. I guess you're a grandma. How I use my money is my business. Why are you acting so high and mighty?
I'm trembling with anger. Why is he even here?
What's even more shocking is that Charlie's laughing along with him.
Miles is a rocker to his core, Vivi. You can't expect him to be sensible.
Is that so? As I get up to leave the room, I hear Miles's voice from behind. Hey, are you forfeiting the match? Did this man change Charlie? No, that's not it. Charlie was probably always like this. I was fooled for so long. People are terrifying creatures. One night, I overhear them. I like this house. I wish the old lady would move out.
I have a good idea. We'll make her want to leave.
I wish I hadn't heard that. This is my house. I'm not going anywhere. One evening, Charlie comes back from the grocery store, and not just with Miles, but with a bunch of shady characters. They start a drinking party in the living room, making a lot of noise and laughing loudly. It's probably intentional. After the party, Charlie delivers the final blow.
Vivi, we're going to karaoke now. Clean this up for us.
Charlie points at the messy table and laughs. So it's come to this. As Charlie and her friends leave the house, the words I should have kept inside slip out of my mouth. I never thought you would be so deceitful, Charlie. You'll regret betraying me. I've reached my breaking point. The blatant harassment from Charlie and Miles continues. They're probably waiting for me to leave on my own, but that's not going to happen. Their plan is transparent and pathetic. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That's my motto. Physical fights are for children. Using wisdom and nonviolence is how adults fight. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a practical guide to strategy that still applies today. Now's the time to use strategy to drive away my enemies, and my spirit is ignited. I'll show these 30-somethings how vibrant today's 70-year-olds can be. One Sunday, after Miles comes over, I say to both of them, Charlie, I have something important to discuss. Miles, you should listen too.
Perfect timing. I have something to talk about as well.
We sit across the table from each other. Miles sits arrogantly. Charlie says with a smile,
Vivi, you're so clueless. Time to wake up. Please leave this house.
What are you talking about? This is my house. If you don't want to live with me, you should leave.
But renting an apartment is expensive. We can live here without paying rent.
Rent-free's the best. Even without a mortgage, money keeps going out for taxes, utilities, and food. But rent is the biggest expense.
So, Vivi, since you're rich with lots of savings, please give this house to us poor young people. We'll be grateful.
I'm utterly disgusted by their audacity. I was shocked to the core. Charlie, with such a wicked heart, you'll be abandoned by heaven.
Heaven? Have you reached enlightenment? You must be close to passing away. My condolences.
Charlie puts her hands together in a mocking prayer, and Miles does the same. My condolences. If they're going to mock me like this, I'm ready to take action. The one who should leave is you.
You're the one who's leaving, Grandma.
Even if she's my daughter-in-law, there's no need to show compassion to Charlie, who mocks me as a grandma. Now that I know her true colors, I won't hold back. No, you're the one who's leaving. Just then, the doorbell rings. Ah, they're here. I said and head to the entrance. Danny appears in the living room, not in his work clothes, but in an expensive-looking suit, without a tie, exuding authority. Charlie tilts her head and asks,
A mover?
Miles, who had been acting so arrogantly, turns pale and sits back down. Oh, why, Dad?
Dad?
Danny glares at Miles, his face full of anger. I heard everything from Vivi. How dare you mess with the person who saved my life? I'll never forgive you. It's not like that. If this table weren't in someone else's house, I'd have already flipped it. Miles, trembling with fear, asks in a low voice, What do you mean by flipped? Shut up. I'm sorry. This time, Danny glares at Charlie and speaks in a low voice. Do you think you can just mess around with people?
I'm not messing around.
Charlie also slumps down, looking small. I asked if you're messing around.
I said I'm not.
This woman is a lifesaver for me. If it weren't for her encouragement, I wouldn't be who I am today. If you mess with her, I'll never forgive you. Remember that.
Yes, sir.
Danny then glares at Miles.
You can't act like this in someone else's house. Miles, let's go. Wait, please. Nope, I'm not waiting.
Miles, who has lost all color, slowly stands up and suddenly dashes out.
Stop right there.
Danny also runs after him. I sternly say to Charlie, who's sitting down, Charlie, leave this house today.
Today? Wait, please.
I'm not waiting. Charlie kneels down and clasps her hands together.
I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
There's no way I can forgive you. You intentionally harassed me to kick me out of the house. Leave now.
I'm sorry, Vivi. Please forgive me. I beg you.
Charlie grabs my hands, but I push her away. There are things that can be forgiven with an apology, and things that can't. What you did can't be forgiven no matter how much you apologize. Leave now. Charlie's face turns red. She bites her lip and adopts a solemn attitude.
Vivi.
I'm just a grandma, right?
I take it back. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Words once spoken can't be taken back, and they probably reflect your true feelings. Charlie stands up, approaches me, and apologizes deeply again.
I have no money, so if you tell me to leave right now, I'll be in trouble. Please give me one more chance. I'll do it right.
You're probably laughing inside, aren't you?
Absolutely not. That's mean. I'm not laughing. So please spare me this time.
No, leave today. Perhaps sensing my resolve, Charlie quietly stands up and leaves the house with a look of despair. Some men might forgive a cute apology, but I'm not that soft. The next day, I get a call from Charlie. I thought about ignoring it, but I answer. Hello?
Vivi.
Can you stop calling me that? We're strangers now.
I have no intention of calling you anything other than Vivi.
Who was it that called me Grandma? Ignoring my sarcasm, Charlie quickly says,
Please help me, Vivi. Miles's friends are blaming me, saying it's my fault and they're targeting me.
It's your fault? Sounds about right.
Vivi, I'm really in a desperate situation. Please help me.
How is a 70-year-old grandma supposed to help you from scary people? Even as I keep being sarcastic, Charlie doesn't get angry but becomes more confused.
They're dangerous people, you understand, right?
I'm busy, so I'm hanging up.
Wait, please wait, Vivi. Lend me some money. I promise I'll pay you back.
I'm flabbergasted. I don't have a single penny to give you.
I want to run away, but I don't have the money for transportation. It's a once-in-a-lifetime request, Vivi.
I'm a 70-year-old grandma living on a pension. I don't have the luxury to give money to a stranger.
But you said you have savings.
Goodbye.
Wait.
I coldly hang up the phone. Being chased by dangerous people? This isn't a TV show or a movie. She's probably making up stories because she knows I won't lend her money. It's like a specialized scam. But something feels off. What if she's actually in danger? She's a young woman and I can't help but worry. If she gets caught, it's over for her. She must be terrified. Charlie did something unforgivable, but that doesn't mean I wish her ill. I can't be completely heartless. Then the phone rings again.
This is my last request, Vivi. Please help me.
Charlie?
Yes.
Your only option is to seek help from the police.
The police?
Don't call me again. You're the one who cut ties.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Her voice trembles as she hangs up. It all feels like an act. Building trust is hard and takes time. Like constructing a building, but it only takes a second to lose trust. That night, I get a call from the police and my heart races. Police? Is Charlie your daughter-in-law? Yes, what about it? She's seeking protection from us. She says you kicked her out. Is that true? I feel relieved. She seems to be safe. I've completely cut ties with her. Even if she has nowhere to live, there's nothing I can do. Can't you let her stay until she finds a new place? Absolutely not. I see. I don't mince words. My former daughter-in-law did something that bad. I decide to sell the house and move to an apartment. It's too big for one person, and cleaning is a hassle. Plus, there's a chance she might come back asking for help. Now that I know her true nature, I can't live with her, even if she apologizes tearfully. It's just not possible.
There's also the issue of her blaming me for her problems. I don't want to be blamed for her deteriorating condition. I hurriedly packed my bags. Danny came to help me move. I'm really sorry for the trouble my son caused you last time. It's not your fault, Danny. At 34, he's a grown man. I sent him to the hospital, just so you know. What? I'm kidding, just kidding. The fact that it doesn't sound like a joke is scary. Once the move was complete and the heavy furniture was set up, all thanks to Danny, I felt relieved. Call me anytime you need some muscle. I'll be there in a flash. I may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I've got plenty of brawn. All my smarts went into my muscles. Ha ha ha. Thank you, Danny. I won't hesitate to call you when the time comes. Who would have thought Danny and Miles were father and son? It's a small world, but thanks to that, I was able to counterattack. I lost my husband, my beloved son, and now the last tie to my daughter-in-law is severed. But I don't feel particularly lonely. Thanks to my outgoing nature, I quickly became friends with the neighbors. A cheerful greeting is the first step to friendship. Looking back on the tumultuous past few weeks, I'm glad I caught on to Charlie's wickedness early on. I was on the verge of losing my home. People can be truly frightening. Now I'm living a luxurious and free life, listening to my favorite music, savoring my favorite coffee, and enjoying my favorite books. My days are comfortable and fulfilling. I'm glad I saved diligently.
You hate my parents that much? It's not about that. I'm just saying we should respect each other. Mom, just let it go. Break up with him. This is the story of how I ended 21 years of life with my selfish and domineering husband, Spencer. My name is Rosalie. I'm a 45-year-old part-time housewife. I live with Spencer, who's the same age as me. Our daughter, Kelly, is 21. She's currently an apprentice hairstylist in New York. Spencer is a corporate guy, but he's had a good income since he was young, so we've never struggled financially. Because of that, I never complained about his many hobbies, like golf and skiing, filling up our garage. But Spencer never shared those hobbies with Kelly and me. Even after Kelly was born, he was rarely home on weekends. We never even ate together during the weekdays. He hardly attended any of Kelly's school events. He'd show up at sports day, but you could tell he didn't want to be there. And he was always yelling. If things didn't go his way, he'd raise his voice. He hated being criticized. Whenever I would speak against his selfish attitude towards Kelly, he'd get angry and kick things around. The anger in his eyes was genuinely frightening. I was always scared of that look. I thought about divorce many times, but I never had the courage. Plus, when he was in a good mood, he'd dote on Kelly, so I couldn't take away her only father. Looking back, I realized that I was probably just making excuses to justify my own laziness. Every summer and Christmas vacation, Spencer would enthusiastically take Kelly and me to visit his parents. His family runs their own business. Spencer, being the eldest son, didn't take it over. Instead, my brother-in-law and his wife run the business and live with my in-laws. Despite choosing the corporate path, Spencer seems to have a complex about my brother-in-law. In front of him, Spencer always brags about how great he is. But his family doesn't really care about Spencer's bragging. They just let it go in one ear and out the other. While I sat doing nothing, it was hard dealing with Spencer, who not only made me do all the chores at his parents' house, but also mocked me openly. Yet his family suddenly looked out for me. When we left, they would always say, "Thanks for coming." So despite Spencer's attitude, I didn't really dislike his family. In fact, I often wondered why Spencer was the way he was, given that his family was so great. My mom raised me on her own after my dad passed away when I was in the 8th grade. She was a part-time nurse's aide back then, but studied hard to become a registered nurse. She worked tirelessly to support me through vocational school. Thanks to her, I landed a job in caregiving. I deeply respect my mom for it. I live alone now, and my aunt, who is my mom's sister, lives nearby. I wanted to visit my family home too because I still worry about Mom. But Spencer, who would gladly spend days at his own home, always made sure our visits to my place were brief, just a couple of hours. And he'd grumble under his breath the whole 3-hour car ride. Spencer was all smiles in front of my mom, though, trying to look like a good person. Fed up with his behavior. Let's spend our summer vacation visiting our own families separately, I suggested. But Spencer absolutely wouldn't have it. Tired of dealing with Spencer's short fuse, I started visiting my mom with Kelly when he wasn't around. Once Kelly passed her cosmetology exams and landed a job in New York, life with Spencer became even more unbearable for me. He suddenly became intrusive, focusing on our home life only after Kelly moved out. Even if I came home slightly late, he would yell at me. But he never stopped going out to play, even while he kept me tightly bound and continually berated me. On weekends when Spencer wasn't home, I actually felt relieved. Occasionally, when he returned home early and found out I hadn't prepared dinner, he would rage. Couples should have their meals together. That's just common sense. I was stunned by his contradictions. Kelly has flown the nest. Even with my qualifications, I could make things work if I put my mind to it. Maybe it's time to seriously consider what lies ahead. Just as I began pondering this, my aunt called me early in the morning. She said she urgently needed to talk, so I immediately felt it was about Mom. After sending Spencer off to work, I headed straight for my parents' house. When I got there, both Mom and my aunt were present. Mom, who I hadn't seen in a while, looked a bit thinner. What's going on? Instead of Mom, my aunt spoke up. Well, you see. Hearing my aunt's words, my mind went blank. Mom has cancer and was given a year to live. I couldn't comprehend what my aunt was saying. As my mind swirled, Mom reassured me. Don't worry. I've seen many people recover from this illness in my line of work. The survival rate is high, she said cheerfully with a smile. Oh, you, my concerned yet frustrated aunt said. Amelia is exaggerating. Mom playfully slapped her on the back, laughing. I was speechless, seeing Mom trying to keep the mood light. Then Mom reassured me. Don't worry, we're fully insured, you know. Her words were full of conviction. When I looked into my mom's eyes, memories flooded back of how she'd supported me bravely without a word of complaint. Even after Dad passed away, tears began to flow uncontrollably. Hey, I'm not dead yet, you know. Mom tried to turn it into a joke, but I could see she was also holding back tears. My aunt was doing her best to keep it together, too. From that point on, my thoughts were consumed by Mom. I deeply regretted secretly meeting someone else behind Spencer's back. Is there anything I can do for Mom, who has worked so hard for me? Then, I remembered something Mom once said. I'd love to spend time leisurely watching the ocean. That's it. I'll gift Mom a vacation. While she still has the energy, I'll make Mom's wish come true. Feeling determined, I first contacted our daughter Kelly and informed her about Mom's condition. I also told her I was considering a divorce, depending on Spencer's reaction. Kelly said she'd come home on her day off tomorrow. The next day, Kelly and I waited for Spencer to return. Spencer arrived home late, but was delighted to see Kelly, who had unexpectedly come to visit. I told Spencer about Mom, and said that for possibly her last long vacation, I wanted to travel with her instead of going to his parents' house. Spencer was furious. You can't be serious. We're going to my parents' house. That's the priority here, because I'm the husband. But this time, I couldn't give in. Like you care about Grace. I care about my mom too. What's wrong with that? Do you hate my parents that much? That's not the point. I'm talking about mutual respect. Even though this was about Mom's health, Spencer showed no understanding. Tears filled my eyes from anger and sadness. Then Kelly spoke up. Mom, just let it go. Divorce him, she said calmly. Her words enraged Spencer. You think you can make a fool out of me? Who do you think puts food on the table? He yelled. But Kelly was unshaken. Then, Dad, do you realize what you're doing is bullying? You always put your fun first and never cared about Mom or me. When I hit my teens, suddenly you became all overprotective, shouting at me daily and calling me an ungrateful daughter who doesn't value her father. You don't care about Mom or me. You're just a kid who wants to be pampered, she stated. Kelly's words opened my eyes more than my own thoughts ever had. See, this is what happens when you let a kid live alone. I don't care about your family. If you don't want to go to my parents' house, let's get a divorce. Spencer was trembling with rage. I looked into his eyes. My resolve hardened. Fine, let's get divorced, I said, ignoring his shouts. I packed our bags, took Kelly with me, and left the house. After that, I went back to my parents' home and immediately started preparing for divorce, sending the divorce papers through a lawyer. Spencer had thought I would break down and apologize, but upon seeing the divorce papers, he signed them in a fit of anger, and just like that, our divorce was finalized. His family apologized many times, but Spencer's last words were, "You'll regret this." I exchanged glances with my in-laws, baffled by the situation. Mom looked sorry, thinking it was her fault that the divorce happened. We assured her multiple times that it wasn't true. We chose our vacation destination based on where Mom wanted to go. You'll worry without a younger person around. Kelly, an apprentice hairstylist, arranged to come with us, securing understanding from her workplace. Mom truly enjoyed herself during the trip. Looking at Mom's peaceful sleeping face, I had to hold back tears, realizing this could be our last time together. Both Kelly and I deeply enjoyed the trip with Mom. Afterwards, I returned to caregiving, supporting Mom in any way I could. I wanted to make the most out of the remaining time, to be with Mom as much as possible, and to give back for everything she's done. Then, nearly a year later, we found out Mom's health was miraculously improving. Mom and I held hands, shedding tears of joy. When I told Kelly, she broke into loud sobs over the phone. There are still precautions to take, but we decided to celebrate. Aligning with Kelly's day off, we invited our aunt and held a modest dinner party. It's a girls' night out. Mom watched Kelly, who said this with an innocent smile, looking truly happy. Just then, the doorbell rang. A frail and emaciated Spencer stood at the entrance. What? I was at a loss for words, seeing how much Spencer had changed. Spencer then, "I've come for you," said softly. I was stunned, and I didn't know what to make of it when Kelly came over. What are you doing? This doesn't involve you anymore. Just go. She raised her voice, trying to push Spencer out. Just as Kelly and I were about to push Spencer out, Aunt grabbed my hand. Let's at least hear what he has to say, she said, smiling warmly at Spencer. Are you kidding me? You know what kind of person he is? Kelly raised her voice, to which Aunt whispered, But it might be interesting, and grinned mischievously. Though unsure, we let Spencer in, knowing Aunt, who's pretty tough-looking, was close by if things got out of hand. Kelly and I exchanged looks, then allowed Spencer to enter the house. Spencer began talking without waiting for us to initiate the conversation. Here's what Spencer had to say. After my divorce with Spencer, he quickly started dating a hostess in her 20s from a nightclub. But as soon as he financially backed her dream of opening her own business, she vanished and stopped responding to his messages. Now in debt, Spencer turned to my family for help. But given the circumstances, they refused and even kicked him out, saying, "You brought this on yourself. Fix your own mess." To add insult to injury, he's also on the list for corporate downsizing and is being pressured to quit. It seems like he's running out of options. "You are the only one who truly loved and understood me," he said. "You're in a stable job in healthcare, right? Why don't we team up as a couple again and support each other? You were waiting for me, weren't you?" I was stunned and almost lost for words, but I managed to say, "We're not a couple anymore. We're strangers." Spencer retorted, "You weren't this cold before. If we can start over, we can even live together in this house. Right, Kelly? Wouldn't you be happy if your parents got along?" He even tried to get support from our daughter, Kelly. But Kelly simply stated, "No, I wouldn't be happy at all. In fact, I'm happier now that Mom laughs more living with Granny. I even look forward to coming to this house, so I'm happier now than when I was a child." She said this matter-of-factly. Spencer lowered his eyes and spoke in a shaky voice. "What should I do if even my own daughter says something like this?" I was really fed up with his melodramatic tone. I looked at Spencer and said, "When I was bedridden with a high fever, you didn't care and went out. When Kelly got injured, you did nothing and left it all to me. But when you caught a minor cold, you'd whine and seek attention. Like Kelly said once, you only think about being pampered. I have no intention of getting back together with someone so selfish and immature." My words flowed more smoothly than I had expected. Upon hearing this, Spencer stood up, glaring at me with his eyes filled with rage. "Who do you think you're talking to? You people are getting too cheeky. Just shut up and do as you're told." He screamed. I wondered why I'd been scared of him for so long. I wasn't afraid of Spencer anymore. Keeping my composure, I told him, "Please leave." Spencer screamed, "You've got to be kidding me!" He then grabbed a piece of fried chicken in front of him and hurled it at me. It felt uncomfortable as the oil splashed on my face. In that moment, something snapped inside me and I stood up. But my mom grabbed my arm and leaned in. Then she told Spencer, "I really want to throw something at you right now, Spencer. But I care too much about Rosalie and Kelly to stoop to your level. If you value yourself, maybe it's time to learn a different way to love." Her voice was soft but filled with resolve. Spencer, caught in his own excitement, didn't take the words to heart. "Don't you dare judge me." He lunged at Mom. That's when Kelly spoke up. "This counts as assault. You know, I'm recording this. Want me to upload it on social media, or should I just call the cops?" She aimed her phone at Spencer. Spencer lowered his raised fist but tried to grab me again. I, however, looked straight into Spencer's eyes and said, "I'll be contacting a lawyer for a restraining order. I'd like to legally ensure that you no longer interact with us. We kindly ask that you leave our home." Spencer chuckled creepily. "I was joking, okay?" He tried to eat the food in front of him. "Please leave," I immediately said. Spencer started to say something, still with that creepy grin, but the intense gaze from me, Kelly, Aunt, and Mom made him mutter. "You're all so cold-hearted." He staggered out. Once Spencer left, the tension drained from us. We looked at each other and gave a tired laugh. Oh! Aunt asked Kelly, "Did you really record that?" Upon hearing this, Kelly casually replied, "As if. It's just a bluff." And she laughed. Although I was filled with joy at how strong Kelly had become, memories of the pain I had caused her filled my mind. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to put you through this," I said, tears of regret spilling over. "It's okay. I see it as a cautionary tale. I'm not a kid anymore, and I can choose who matters to me. But there was a time when it hurt. to feel like I was the reason you wouldn't divorce. I'd appreciate it if you could be a little more decisive moving forward." Kelly responded with tears in her eyes. Hearing Kelly's stern yet kind words, I felt the weight of the burden I'd placed on her and wanted to cry out. But with strong-willed Kelly and my mom, who fought through her severe illness right in front of me, I knew I had to be strong too. I may have called Spencer immature, but I realized I still have much growing up to do myself. Spencer tried calling me several times afterward, but I didn't respond at all. He even showed up at the house a few times, but I only told him through the door, "I'll call the police," and I never met him. After a few visits like that, just as I was discussing calling the police next time, I got a call from my in-laws. "We apologize for our foolish son. We don't want to cause you any trouble, especially not for our granddaughter Kelly, so we've decided to take responsibility as his parents." That was the gist of it. They called back Spencer, who I kicked out, to help with the family business and tried to re-educate him. But he couldn't stand working under his brother-in-law and ended up causing trouble, not only for the family, but also for their clients. A CEO of one of those clients couldn't stand it any longer and transferred Spencer to work at a subsidiary in the middle of nowhere. It was a strict environment with no entertainment around, and Spencer now seems to be working in what's basically isolation. For someone like Spencer who loves fun, this might be the ultimate penalty. Facing my mom's situation gave me the chance to confront myself. I learned to be strong without blaming others. While I do think Spencer got what he deserved, I can't help but be thankful for the strong, compassionate woman Kelly has become. Rather than harboring resentment, my greater wish now is for Spencer to gain emotional independence. I hope he's living his life somewhere I don't know about.
In one winter, a high school admission guide addressed to my son arrived at our home. Unbelievable. My son, Samuel, passed away 7 years ago. When I called the school, they only told me to come in. Is this some mistake, or am I falling for a scam? Even though I had these thoughts, the pain of losing Samuel had been haunting me, and I found myself heading to the school on the designated day. There, I learned an unbelievable truth. I'm Emily, 42 years old. I started working at my dream publishing company right out of college. I've been an editor for 20 years now. People often think editing is a glamorous job, but it's actually really tough. 2 years ago, I became the editor-in-chief of a popular women's magazine. I've finally gotten used to the new responsibilities, but I'm busier than ever. The truth is, I never wanted to be so consumed by my work, let alone become an editor-in-chief. I'd been turning down the offer to take the role for about 5 years. The reason? Samuel. I've always longed for a family. I didn't have the best upbringing and spent a lonely childhood. I was envious of my friends whose parents were home on weekends, sharing meals and playtime. I knew from a young age that I wouldn't have that with my own parents. I'd eat dinner alone in the living room, placing stuffed animals on chairs to keep me company. I vowed that when I had my own family, I'd spend lots of time with my kids. I wanted to have meals together every day and go out on weekends. I couldn't wait to start my own family. I finally did at 26. My husband Benjamin was a busy sales executive, but we had a child soon after getting married, and we became a family of 3 within a year. I loved my job as an editor, but what I wanted most was to spend joyful times with my family. But those joyful times hardly ever came. Samuel was frail from birth and had multiple chronic conditions. By the time he was 8, his health had deteriorated significantly, and he was frequently in and out of the hospital. He fought his illnesses bravely. Thanks to a supportive work environment, I managed to balance my job with spending time with Samuel. I thought about quitting many times, but the high medical bills made it difficult. Our life revolved around supporting Samuel's fight against his illnesses. Samuel's medical condition causes various things to happen, even on holidays or at night. Benjamin grew increasingly stressed and less discreet about showing it. Eventually, he stopped coming home and rarely visited Samuel in the hospital. We initially tried to talk and even argued about our family, but Benjamin didn't change. So I spent even more time in the hospital room, not wanting Samuel to feel lonely. I just wanted us to be a good family, even if it was just Samuel and me. My wish was in vain. Samuel never made it to his 13th birthday. He passed away a week before it. He had said he wanted to eat a chocolate-loaded birthday cake with both Mom and Dad. But neither the cake I'd ordered nor Benjamin ever made it to his hospital room. I was the only one there for Samuel's last moments, and I alone prepared for his funeral. Benjamin claimed he was busy with work and barely showed up for the funeral. Seeing Benjamin uncomfortable at the service, I felt nothing anymore. Once again, I gave up on the idea of family. Shortly after, I became the editor-in-chief. I had always prioritized Samuel, but considering my career, the previous editor-in-chief nominated me. To be honest, I never had any interest in climbing the career ladder. Family was my top priority. But now, my beloved Samuel was gone, and my husband hardly ever came home. I had no family left to prioritize. I threw myself into my work to escape the sorrow and loneliness of losing Samuel. I visited Samuel's grave often, but when Benjamin found out, he just sighed heavily. Still, I continued to place flowers on Samuel's grave. Sometimes I'd find fresh flowers there, and I thought maybe Benjamin had been visiting secretly, but I never asked him directly. 3 years passed in a blur of work. I had gotten used to the overwhelming busyness, but when I thought about life outside of work, I felt an irrevocable loneliness. Then one day, something unbelievable arrived at my home. A high school admission guide, addressed to Samuel, who had passed away 3 years ago. I knew this couldn't be possible. But if Samuel were alive, he'd be 15 now, the age to enter high school. I couldn't help but feel as if Samuel were still alive, even though I knew he wasn't. I immediately called the school. A clerk answered. "Excuse me, I received a high school admission guide addressed to Samuel, but..." "Congratulations on this occasion." "No, Samuel passed away 3 years ago." "What? Oh, please hold on a moment." The line switched to hold music after I heard a voice that sounded like someone recalling something. After a while, a different woman, who said she was a teacher at the school, came on the line. I explained the situation again, suggesting it might be a mistake. She then asked me to come in for a pre-admission meeting. Strangely, she also confirmed my name, which I hadn't mentioned. Wait, did I say my name? Then she said something unbelievable. "Your son is waiting for you." At first, I was suspicious and didn't understand, but she kept insisting over the phone. I started to feel as if Samuel were really alive. I knew Benjamin would think I'd lost my mind if I told him, but I agreed to go to the school. I knew it was impossible, but I couldn't help wanting to see even a shadow of Samuel, who was gone. On the day of the pre-admission meeting, I walked through the high school gates. "Are you Miss Emily?" The woman who greeted me had the kind voice I'd heard on the phone. Thank you for coming today. Please, this way. She led me to the parent-teacher conference room. In the room sat a young boy, probably in middle school. His profile before he turned to face me eerily resembled Samuel, and it took me aback. Nice to meet you. My name is Mason. Sorry for the surprise. So, we are meeting for the first time, aren't we? You do look a bit like Samuel, but you're not him. I apologize for the deception. I'm not your son, but I am Benjamin's son. His shocking words left me speechless. He then explained that he was the child of Benjamin and his mistress. I had suspected that Benjamin was having an affair. He was never home, and our relationship was strained. But to find out he had a child from a common-law marriage was beyond shocking. Before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. Of course, I felt sadness for myself, but I also felt sorry for Mason's situation. Actually, I knew about his circumstances. We have an academic test for class placement for new students. That's when he told me about his situation, and that he knew about you. He asked me to invite you here. The teacher deeply apologized, but I had no intention of blaming her. Thank you for caring for him. I already felt like he was a son to me. Afterward, Mason and I moved to a nearby park to talk more. He detailed his life circumstances. His mom, Ava, was a colleague of Benjamin's. They were in a common-law marriage and hadn't officially tied the knot. He was an unplanned child, and both parents considered him a burden. He found out about me by secretly checking Benjamin's phone. I wanted to know what kind of person you were, so I followed you and saw you at the grave. I learned I had a brother. I asked, suspecting the answer, and it turned out that the unfamiliar bouquets occasionally placed at Samuel's grave were from him. The shock that it wasn't Benjamin was overtaken by my gratitude and affection for Mason. Thank you so much. I didn't know anything about him, so all I could think to do was leave flowers. Your brother was a very kind boy, just like you. I wish I had a brother. It would have been fun. Mason then shared his current family situation. His mom, Ava, was education-focused and had strictly made him study, but he hadn't achieved any special grades. Since then, he felt mostly neglected. Neither his dad nor mom ever attended school events, and there was hardly any conversation at home. Even meals were not prepared for him. It was clear he was starved for parental love. Yet Mason seemed to me like a straight arrow, kind young man despite it all. I can't ask you to be my mom, but I'd like you to attend the orientation for incoming students in place of my mom. I'll, of course, thank you for it. And if you want to get back at Dad and Mom, I'll help. I decided to take revenge, not just for my own bitterness, but also for the hardships Mason had endured. Mason already had several pieces of incriminating evidence, and we decided to confront them with it. I waited at the house where Mason lived, timed to their return from a trip. Both Benjamin and Ava were visibly shocked when they saw me. I slammed down the evidence Mason had given me and calmly demanded a divorce and compensation. In a panic, Benjamin pleaded, I have no intention of marrying her. I don't need an underachiever like him either, so drop the divorce and the compensation claim. My anger exploded when Mason was called an underachiever, and before I knew it, I was pounding the table. I don't need a person who neglects their own child. Shortly after, a representative from Child Protective Services, whom Mason and I prearranged, arrived. Mason explained his situation. Benjamin and Ava were thoroughly blamed, but had nothing to say in their defense. Later, I received the compensation I had demanded from Benjamin. Not only did Mason declare he never wanted to see Benjamin again, But Benjamin's parents also disowned him when they learned of the situation. Rumors about what Benjamin had done to Mason eventually spread to his workplace. And with the compensation he had to pay me, he seemed to be struggling financially. Mason chose to be taken into care by Child Protective Services, saying they were better than Ava. Benjamin's parents, who were genuinely kind and decent people, offered to become Mason's guardians, and I gladly agreed. Of course, I attended Mason's orientation for incoming students as promised. Seeing Mason with his new backpack, smiling, filled me with warmth, as if I were watching my own son. At orientation for incoming students, the teacher who let me meet Mason approached me. The teacher was happy to have me there. I imagined that this is how it would have been if Samuel were alive. Not just Samuel, but both Samuel and Mason, smiling together. If it weren't for Mason, I might still be drowning in loneliness and work. Mason, congratulations! Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for finding me. We celebrated the day as if we were a real family. I have a gift for your enrollment. I told him I planned to use the compensation from Benjamin for his college expenses and encouraged him to enjoy high school life. I wanted Mason to find what he loves and pursue it wholeheartedly, making up for what Samuel couldn't do. Hearing this, Mason cried tears of joy. Despite everything, I've continued to interact with Mason after the orientation. I think of him as another Samuel, growing up and becoming more mature. Mason seems to consider me as his new family, and we often go out to eat together, sharing stories and concerns about his recent school life. Mason wants to become a teacher. The teacher who helped us meet is still actively helping students with their problems. He wants to be a teacher who can genuinely assist students in what they need, he said. I've decided to help Mason achieve his dream in any way I can. I may not be his mom, but I want to help Mason live a happy life, making up for what Samuel couldn't have. We're often mistaken for a real family, and I find that delightful. I now know that family doesn't have to be bound by blood.